Tennis has gotten faster and faster. Not just at the top level are people just hitting with absolute incredible speed. We're also seeing hard hitters at the recreational level. Modern rackets allow us to swing a whole lot faster and get a whole lot more pop on the ball. So you will face players who are just going to pummel you with deep, hard balls back at the baseline. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 tips on what to do against those big hitters and how to keep the rallies alive so you can turn the momentum against them. Modern offense calls for modern defense. Maybe on really, really slow clay courts, could you still play defense the way that I learned how to do it? You basically drop back to the back fence, which gives you more time, but of course you're going to have a whole lot of issues now on faster courts with that. Even if it's a slow clay court, which this obviously is not, you would have to cover so much more ground because the further you are behind the baseline, the more the court opens up, the more angles your opponent has available. And even if you could do that on a faster court, it most likely would catch up on you right in that rally, and if not in that one specific point, definitely over the duration of the match, because it also becomes incredibly difficult when you're playing defense that far behind the baseline to then consistently and constantly having to work to come back to a more aggressive court position. On hard courts, indoor courts, basically on pretty much everything other than a rain-soaked clay court, you really do not have the time to move back quickly enough because A, they're hitting that hard and the court helps the bigger hitters. And most likely when somebody hits the ball really, really hard, they're not hitting them with a whole lot of topspin because those balls would bounce a little higher. And when somebody's blasting the balls hard, deep, without as much spin, they're also most likely going to sit a little bit lower. Really difficult shots to handle, but luckily there are 3 tips that I'm going to give you that will enable you to at least neutralize them. Number 1, you have to get low. You cannot just try to get your racket head under the ball because most likely what's happening there then if you're still upright is that you fall off the shot and or you just get the ball with the lower edge of your racket, which means that you're shanking the ball. So everything has to be a whole lot lower because the next thing that you get with this lower base is a really stable position from which you can counter that pace. And that is why you see the pros sometimes really almost hitting these squat shots. And you already guessed, that's a lot of work on your thighs. Immediately when you play somebody who hits the ball harder, start with the lower base. Because here, of course, it's a lot easier to drop even a little further, and of course that prevents the racket head from just pointing to the ground and you trying to do that. So you want to be here, and then you get into tip number 2. You may have to adjust your take back. You may have to dramatically shorten it up. For instance, on faster serves, we are talking about blocking the ball. You're literally just taking the racket maybe just down and back and come forward. When you're getting those deeper, faster, lower balls, it might be the exact same thing. You don't have the time to have a big wind-up and a full loop. You may just simply take the racket down and back and then swing up and forward to make contact. Usually players with 2 hands on the backhand have an easier time with that because they have the added, of course, support of their offhand. It can get a little bit more problematic on the forehand. If you have a pretty big wind-up, you have to shorten it up, which of course affects the timing and then will also affect your follow-through. Your follow-through might look totally different than if you had the time for your regular wind-up. Usually you probably finish somewhere around biceps or even over your shoulder. If you don't have that type of wind-up, you might finish somewhere here. You just kind of whip up there to your contact point. You might even finish over your own right shoulder, perfectly fine. Allow yourself to hit a not so picture perfect shot, but a shot that has quality and allows you to stay in the point, more important than style points. The 3rd tip is that you have to adjust the expectations of what you can actually do with the type of shot that you're getting. Let me give you an example. So at this point you see that Diego, my opponent here, is hitting a forehand. He's far outside the court and he's hitting a very flat ball very fast, not necessarily the absolute deepest, but very obviously what I'm seeing is the open court. So I want to change direction, but look at what I'm doing here. I'm completely upright here. I'm not really having any solid base, and I'm just catching that ball a little too late. And that's why I'm missing it. Your highest percentage shot when somebody's blasting the ball at you that way is that you give the ball 100% of the racket face, meaning that you're not trying to change direction and basically tilting your racket. And if it's just a few degrees, which is usually what you would do, and you accomplish that, of course, by turning a little bit more, but with the pace that that ball is coming into you, any milli-half degree off and or milli-half second that you're not timing that perfectly will give the ball a pretty drastic result like we just saw. So I'd say instead of going for the open corner that we do visually see open, go right back to the person, because the pace at that moment is probably a little bit more than you can handle. And I've faced that many times in my career. Pro tip. You saw in the footage when I was working on those shots that I played out balls. Doesn't matter whether they're a foot out, a centimeter, an inch, whatever it is. The ball's coming at you so fast. If you're thinking, oh, that's gonna go out, and you don't prepare, you're not ever gonna make that shot. So hit those balls, you can always still call them out. And if you wanna get a couple more tactical options on how to play against hard hitters, check out this video.